Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Chicago-born, Berlin-based jazz musician Ed Partyka. We caught up with him on May 5th, 2020 during the initial stages of the COVID-19 lockdown to talk about this strange new world of no live music. Originally from Chicago, he received a BA degree from Northern Illinois University before moving on to Germany back in 1990. Over the years, he has toured and recorded with Bob Brookmeyer, New Art Orchestra, Vienna Art Orchestra, Carla Bley, WDR Big Band, and so many others. Get to know him.
So exactly where are you located?
I'm in Graz, Austria, the second largest city in Austria. It's about 100 and something miles south of Vienna. I don't know if you know the country of Austria or much about the location here, but yeah, it's a university city, and the reason I'm living here currently is because I have a job teaching at the university.
Well, good deal. So how's everything going over there? Are you happy that's where you're at for quarantine?
Yes, yeah. I mean, Austria is one of the countries, like New Zealand and Finland and stuff. Our government acted very quickly, very competently, and things right. We're slowly starting to come out of quarantine, but we only had 500 deaths in the whole country, and the government did a great job. So responded very quickly, and things were strict for a while, but looks like we got through the first phase. Of course, we have to remain vigilant. But, things here are actually quite good.
So, obviously you're teaching, so what else have you been doing to kind of keep your creative juices going?
Right now I've been doing a lot of writing because, I'm in the middle of a couple projects because in addition to my teaching, I'm the chief conductor and artistic director of the UMO Helsinki Jazz Orchestra in Finland. And so, so basically this year I've been commuting between Austria and Finland. And of course, all the concerts up in Finland were sort of pushed back and postponed. But I'm in the middle of writing a lot of music for that band right now. We have a project coming up as soon as our concerts start again with China Moses. So I'm right in the middle of writing a bunch of arrangements for China with the big band, and another stick vocalist from London. His name is Ola Onabule. We've got a project with him, so I'm in the middle of those charts as well. So actually, for me, it's also been a very a sort of a peaceful time, and I get to spend a lot of time during the day writing my charts, because normally with my normal life, with rehearsals and teaching, I'm sort of a night owl when it comes to writing, and so it's actually sort of nice to write things during the day and not have to stay up all night doing that stuff, so it's been quite relaxing and productive.
The one thing about the jazz community is that, for the most part, people aren't in it for the money, so it seems like there's a level of resiliency, and at the end of the day, this whole pandemic is the most ultimate version of improv. It's like you're improv masters.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the thing is, it's also, exactly. I mean, jazz musicians are sort of used to dealing with a constantly changing situation, and also, it's like I noticed that when dealing with my colleagues here at the university from the classical departments, who are not used to improvising. I mean, exactly what you said is very true. And jazz musicians, of course, are very creative and being, sort of built to deal with an ever-changing situation, because, I mean, the music is constantly changing, and also dealing with sort of a freelance career, which is, sort of the thing that jazz musicians have been doing for generations. So, I guess it's sort of just in our DNA a little bit. And in a situation like this, I also think that it just allows us to maybe not panic as much as some other people.
So, you're originally from Chicago.
Exactly. Born and raised in Chicago, and then went to college at Northern Illinois University, which is in DeKalb, Illinois. And then at a fairly early age, I moved to Germany. So I was 22 years old when I moved over to Germany from Chicago, and also to sort of continue my studies. And then at that point in time, I was thinking about staying in Europe for a year or two. And it's been 30 years now. So,
what musicians really got you going in the beginning? Who inspired you to want to be in jazz?
Well, when I was a young trombone player starting out, big bands were sort of a thing, just traditional big bands. And then, of course, Basie's band, Stan Kenton's orchestra. And then after that, trombone players, so people like J.J. Johnson. And then when I started to get a little specific on the bass trombone, Dave Taylor was somebody who was important. And then being from Chicago, I was exposed to some things like the Art Ensemble of Chicago, and like Lester Bowie was a big influence. Lester Boy's Brass Fantasy, that sort of stuff was like a big influence growing up as a player. And then when I started getting into writing, my big passion and the person who was music I fell in love with at a very early age was Bob Brookmeyer. And Bob, I had the great pleasure years later to study with Bob, and I was a member of his New Art Orchestra. So my association with Bob Brookmeyer went on for 17 years, and he was sort of the reason I wanted to write music. And I fell in love with his music, as I just mentioned, and then I was so lucky that I got to work with him for such a long time. So for me, that's Bob Brookmeyer was sort of the main driving force in my life as a musician.
And he has Kansas City roots. Bob does.
Exactly. Yeah. He was born 1929, and I mean he would tell stories about the first time that he got really interested in music was when he went to hear the Basie Band. And I mean, it must have been around 1941 or something, 41. So, so that era Basie Band, and that was one of the first things that excited him when he was like 11 years old. That's the story he told, the first time he was thrilled by music. Yeah, so, so there is a little connection there.
So talk to me about the first live jazz show you saw that made you think, man, this is what I want to do.
It was probably just a local amateur band playing. I can't even really remember who it was, but it was just, there was always something about music that got me moving, and that was just very attractive to me. I mean, I remember seeing local summer concert bands in the park, and for a while I was really fascinated with the clarinet, and then at some point in time seeing a jazz band it must have been a big band, and just all of a sudden the trombone became a fixation. And I do remember one time, once I got a little bit older, Bob bugging my dad to go see the Glenn Miller Orchestra. And I mean, I must have been also 10 or 12 years old. And I remember going to see the Glenn Miller band in this sort of outside amphitheater. And of course, even back then, in the 1970s, the Glenn Miller audience was back then. The average age was a bit older. And so my dad was sort of the youngest adult in the whole room or the whole arena. And there's me, this little kid, way in the back. And we sat way in the back. And I remember they played Pennsylvania 6-5000. And when they got to the, the bell rang, and me from way in the back, this little kid yelling, Pennsylvania 6-5000. All these blue and gray-haired ladies turning around and wondering what the heck was going on. So, so those are some of the earliest concerts where I was really sort of getting into, more big band and sort of just general jazz. But, or I guess whatever traditional, very traditional mainstream jazz. But I guess probably a very influential concert for my career as a writer and a professional musician was the George Gruntz Concert Jazz Band. I don't know if you're aware of that band, but it was a big band, sort of an all-star big band, led by the Swiss pianist and composer arranger George Gruntz. And the band usually, they played mainly in Europe, but they were doing a United States tour in 1987. And they were playing in Chicago, and a few of my friends and I, we drove down, and it was a spectacular, all-star band. In the sax section, Joe Henderson was in the sax section. I remember recently, in rest in peace, Lee Konitz was in the band. Sheila Jordan was singing. The trombone section was Ray Anderson, Art Barron. Kenny Wheeler was in the trumpet section. Martin Stammen. It was really just a spectacular band, and that was like a big turning point for me about becoming a band leader, and wanting to be a professional writer. So that was probably a big moment, 1987.
What do you like the best about being a musician?
That's a hard question. I think it's a genuine privilege to be able to do something as a career that is also your passion. I feel incredibly lucky to be able to do that, and I feel incredibly grateful that I've had, the opportunity and the chance to do that for the last, the last 30 years. And I feel blessed, because, if you talk to people who have other jobs, a lot of people are not really thrilled when they go to work, or they really look forward to the weekend because they don't have to work. But I mean, to do something as a vocation that is also a passion, and your own passion, I think I just feel very, very special to be able to have that life. That when I start work in the morning, it's something I love to do, and to really not have there's sort of no border or line between hobby, free time, and job, because it's all one, all-encompassing sort of, I guess once again, passion is a great word to say. And through music, the connection to people that you get, and also the fact that I've been able to travel all around the world has been also just one of the great benefits of music. So being able to share music, connect to people all around the world, getting to see basically, almost every continent. Unfortunately, I've never been to Africa, but I've been to Australia a bunch of times, Asia, of course, North and South America, and all over Europe. And it's just been, like I said, it's just been a pleasure to have that life, so in doing something also that, you feel strongly about, that you love. So I guess is that an answer?
Yes, that's a great answer. I really like it, man. Yeah, and we're all going to get to the end of this COVID-19 quarantine in the world. And when we do, what do you hope both musician and audience member gets from this time away?
Yes, I mean, I think musicians, when you talk to people, both musicians and audiences really miss the connection of live music. And it is something that is unique. It's a unique art form. And of course, jazz being a very, very unique art form, with so much improvisation and so many unexpected events that can happen in a concert. It's so thrilling, and of course, people are missing it. Audiences and musicians. The musicians who are performing online for no audience are totally missing the feedback, because of course that's one of the things that makes the music special, is having people to react to it. Because of course, as a musician on stage, you get that emotion, you get that energy back. And of course, for audience members, it must be the same thing. Listening to a recording is only so much of is so satisfying. So I think when we get back to playing live concerts, both audience members and musicians are just going to be so grateful, so thrilled to be doing it again. And of course, the other thing is, we, for many years, decades, we all sort of took it for granted. I think, that hey, I played a concert tonight. I'm going to play another concert next week. But of course now, I think we all realize how actually special it is. So I think when we get back to playing concerts, everyone's just going to even feel that it's even more special.
Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, students, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
And of course, the way that everybody answers it is obviously the reason why you ask it. So I'm trying to find a way to figure out, because of course, I guess how we see each other, or how we see ourselves, is. Yeah, that's sort of an interesting question, because I'm trying to find some way to get into it. Obviously, the actual physical details. Okay, well, I'm an American person who's lived in Europe for a long time, so I'm a mix of cultures, if you want to call it like that. Who's worked as a player, a composer, arranger, a conductor, and as a teacher. So I'm somebody who has had the absolute wonderful experience of playing with great musicians, learning from great musicians and great mentors, and now I'm in the enviable position of being able to pass some of that knowledge on to the next generation of musicians, and hopefully some of the things I've learned, experiences that I've learned in my life, and combined with the tools that I've acquired as a musician, I can hopefully express myself as an artist with my written, with my composed and arranged music, while at the same time hopefully also maybe helping to in some way inspire others, or at least touch others in some way. I guess maybe that's how I see myself, being a person who maybe tries to connect different cultures, different countries, different musicians from different places. And, just seeing myself also in a very long lineage of big band leaders and composers, arrangers, and trying to just be a link in that chain, that goes all the way back to Duke Ellington and before, and will continue for hopefully the next 1,000 years.
Right on. That's a great answer, man. Ed, thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz during this very strange time on the planet.
Yeah, thank you so very much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Chicago, Germany, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Ed for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.